Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of the ESS Endeavour, her dark eyes reflecting the shimmer of distant stars. The deep space exploration mission had been uneventful for the past 3 months, but something about today felt different. The ship's quantum sensors had detected unusual energy patterns that defied known physics, drawing them to this unexplored sector of space. "Captain, you need to see this." Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice carried an unusual tremor of excitement over the comm. "The main view screen. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered." As Sarah made her way to the bridge, she couldn't have prepared herself for what awaited. The main view screen displayed what appeared to be a vast garden of crystalline structures floating in space, each one refracting starlight in complex, almost musical patterns. The structures ranged from delicate, snowflake-like formations to massive geometric shapes that dwarfed the Endeavour. "Are they artificial structures?" Sarah asked, but before anyone could respond, the crystals began to move. Not with the cold precision of machines, but with the fluid grace of living beings. The crew watched in stunned silence as the crystalline forms arranged themselves into a pattern that seemed purposeful, almost like a greeting. Dr. Emily Watson, the ship's xenobiologist, was already running scans. "Captain, they're alive. These aren't structures, they're beings. The energy patterns we detected, they're not just physical phenomena. They appear to be some form of communication." The crystal beings drew closer, their surfaces rippling with waves of color that transformed from deep blues to warm golds. One of them, smaller than the others, approached the Endeavour with deliberate care. As it neared, the ship's sensors detected complex electromagnetic patterns emanating from its surface. "They're trying to communicate," Communications Officer Patil announced, his fingers dancing across his console. "The patterns, they're not random. There's a mathematical sequence here, similar to the first radio messages we sent into space centuries ago." Sarah made a decision. "Send our own mathematical sequence in response. Let's show them we understand." What followed was humanity's first conversation with the Zalaxians, as they would come to be known. The crystalline beings possessed a form of consciousness that experienced reality through light and energy. Their language was a complex interplay of color, mathematical patterns, and electromagnetic resonance. The breakthrough came when Dr. Watson noticed something extraordinary. As the Xylaxian ambassador moved closer to observe the humans through the ship's viewing ports, its crystalline form began to reflect the thermal signatures of the crew. More than that, it started to mirror their emotional states through subtle changes in its light patterns. "They're empaths," Dr. Watson explained, her voice filled with wonder, "but not in the way we traditionally think of it. They don't just sense emotions. They experience them as colors and patterns of light. When we feel joy, they see it as a spectrum of warm colors. When we're curious, they perceive it as shifting geometric patterns." Over the next few days, the crew of the Endeavour worked tirelessly to develop a translation system that could bridge the gap between human language and Zalaxian color speech. The Zalaxians proved to be eager teachers, patient with human limitations, and fascinated by human creativity. The moment that would be recorded in history books came when Captain Chen stepped into the specially designed meeting chamber to greet the Xylaxian ambassador in person. As she extended her hand in the traditional human greeting, the crystalline being reached out with a delicate appendage. The touch created a cascade of colors throughout the ambassador's form, a spectacular light show triggered by human body heat and electromagnetic field. The Zalaxians' response, translated through the newly developed system, would be remembered for generations. "Your species burns with an inner light we have never encountered. We see in you a warmth that goes beyond the physical. You will make the galaxy a more colorful place." It was the beginning of a friendship that would change the course of human history, though none of them yet knew just how much humanity's protective nature would be needed in the days to come. 6 months after first contact, the Human Xylaxian Cultural Center on Europa stood as a testament to interspecies cooperation. The massive crystalline dome housed both species in an environment where they could thrive together, its walls programmed to shift between Earth normal conditions and the unique electromagnetic frequencies the Xylaxians needed to flourish. Dr. Emily Watson stood in the center's main atrium, watching a group of human children interact with a young Xylaxian researcher. The crystalline being was teaching them about light refraction, its form splitting a beam of light into a dazzling rainbow that danced across the chamber. The children's laughter caused ripples of golden light to pulse through the Xylaxian's form. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Captain Chen, now Earth's primary liaison with the Xylaxians, appeared beside her. 6 months ago, we couldn't imagine this level of integration. Before Emily could respond, the atrium's lights flickered. The Xylaxian teacher's form shifted from golden joy to a deep, unsettling purple. Throughout the chamber, other Xylaxians began exhibiting the same color change, a shade that the humans had never seen before. "Something's wrong," Emily said, reaching for her data tablet. "This is a new emotional signature." The center's communication system activated. "Emergency alert. We've lost contact with Research Station Gamma in the Proxima system. All readings from the station have ceased. Over the next 72 hours, 3 more Xylaxian research stations went dark." The pattern was clear. Something was methodically moving through their territory, and whatever it was, it didn't bother to hide its approach. In the Europa Center's command hub, Captain Chen studied the stellar map with growing concern. The dead zones formed a clear line of advance, heading toward major Xylaxian population centers. "Have the long-range scanners picked up anything?" "Nothing definitive," Lieutenant Rodriguez, who had followed Chen from the Endeavor to her new post, replied. "But we're detecting unusual gravitational distortions. Whatever's out there, it's big." The answer came in the form of a distress call from Research Station Epsilon. The transmission began as a standard emergency beacon, but transformed into something more haunting. A Xylaxian color speech message so intense that it overloaded the translation systems. Emily worked frantically to decode it, her fingers trembling as she adjusted the algorithms. When the message finally resolved, her face paled. "It's not just fear," she whispered. "It's extinction-level terror." The message contained more than emotions. Embedded in the color patterns were images of massive ships, black as the space between stars, their surfaces resembling carved obsidian. They moved with predatory grace, systematically stripping each station of its crystalline technology and leaving broken fragments of Xylaxian inhabitants in their wake. The Crax Imperium, a senior Xylaxian elder's colors pulsed with deep crimson as it shared the name. They view all crystalline-based technology as their rightful property. In their eyes, we are not living beings, merely resources to be harvested. Captain Chen watched the recorded images, her jaw tightening. The Crax ship's design spoke of a species that valued dominance above all else. Their vessels bristled with weapons that seemed designed not just to destroy, but to intimidate. "How many colonies have you lost contact with?" she asked quietly. 17. The elder's form shifted to a colored humans had learned to associate with grief. "We are scientists, explorers. In all our history, we have never needed to develop weapons. We never imagined, never thought." The elder's voice trailed off as its color faded to a dull gray. Around the command center, other Xylaxians began to resonate with the same hopeless shade. Captain Chen stepped forward, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's long history. "Then it's time you learned about a different kind of science," she said, activating the intercom. "This is Captain Chen to all Earth forces in the Europa sector. We are initiating Protocol Guardian. This is not a drill." Throughout the station, warning lights began to pulse. In orbit above Europa, human ships that had been disguised as research vessels began shedding their civilian facades, revealing the combat capabilities that humanity had quietly maintained. They had hoped never to need these weapons in their new age of peaceful exploration, but humanity had learned long ago the importance of being prepared. The Crax were about to learn that harming humanity's friends carried consequences they couldn't imagine. The United Earth Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from every human colony and space station packed the circular hall, their attention fixed on the central holographic display. Above them, a delegation of Xylaxian elders hovered, their crystalline forms pulsing with anxious colors that cast shifting shadows across the assembled faces. Admiral Sarah Chen, newly promoted after her success with First Contact, stood at the podium. The display showed the steady advance of Crack's forces, each red marker representing another fallen Xylaxian outpost. The Crack's Imperium has destroyed 17 research stations and 3 colony clusters, she reported, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Their technology is advanced, but their tactics are predictable. They rely on overwhelming force and intimidation. A council member from Mars Colony leaned forward. What do we know about their capabilities? Their ships are heavily armed, but rigid in design and strategy. Chen responded, gesturing to the tactical analysis. They've never encountered significant resistance from the species they've subjugated. This makes them overconfident, and more importantly, predictable. The chamber erupted in discussion until Council President Torres raised his hand for silence. The question before us is not whether to act, but how. The Xylaxians are our allies. Their art and science have already enriched our civilization immeasurably. We will not abandon them. High above the chamber, the eldest of the Xylaxian delegation shifted color to a deep blue of gratitude. We have studied your history. Its translated voice resonated through the hall. We know the cost of what you offer. Our species has never waged war. We would not ask you to bear this burden alone. President Torres smiled. You misunderstand, honored friends. We do not see this as a burden, but as a duty, a privilege. Humanity has learned through long experience that peace must sometimes be defended. The Council's vote was unanimous. Within hours, humanity's response would be broadcast across every known communication frequency, including the crystalline harmonics used by the Xylaxians and the quantum channels favored by the Cracks. The message began with a simple historical archive, scenes from Earth's past conflicts, not just the battles, but their aftermath. The price of war, the cost of peace, and most importantly, humanity's long journey to learn the difference between fighting because you can and fighting because you must. Admiral Chen's voice carried across the stars. To the Crack's Imperium. We, the United Peoples of Earth and her colonies, have received reports of your attacks on Xylaxian territories. Let us be clear, these actions will cease immediately. The message continued, switching to display the technological and cultural achievements that the human Xylaxian alliance had produced in just 6 months. The Xylaxians are under Earth's protection. They are not your resources to plunder. They are our friends, our teachers, our partners in exploring the wonders of this galaxy. In their command ship, the Crack's leadership watched with mounting amusement. Their response came swiftly. Your species is young and ignorant. The strong take what they desire. Stand aside, or be swept aside. The final phase of Earth's message began to play. A detailed analysis of Crack's battle tactics, compiled from Xylaxian sensor data. Alongside it, a comprehensive breakdown of their technical vulnerabilities, authored by a joint human Xylaxian research team. This is not a threat, Chen's voice concluded. This is a courtesy. A warning born from our own history. Humanity has learned difficult lessons about the price of conflict. We do not wish to teach these lessons to others, but make no mistake, we will protect our allies. In orbit around Europa, Earth's research vessels completed their transformation into warships. Throughout human space, shipyards that had been quietly manufacturing defensive systems began launching their creations. Humanity had hoped for peace among the stars, but they had never stopped preparing for other possibilities. The Crack's Imperium's dismissive response would prove to be their first major miscalculation. They had encountered many species in their expansion. Some fought, some fled, some surrendered. But they had never encountered a species that had mastered both the art of peace and the science of war, and knew exactly when each was necessary. The Europa testing facility hummed with activity as Dr. Emily Watson adjusted the final calibrations on the prototype integration chamber. Before her, a standard Earth corvette-class ship floated in the massive dock, its hull partially disassembled. Crystalline structures grew across its surface like elegant frost patterns, each one precisely placed by Xylaxian artisan engineers. "The neural interface is ready," Emily announced, turning to Captain Miguel Santos, who would pilot the first hybrid vessel. Behind him, a Xylaxian engineer named Aurora, a rough translation of their color name, pulsed with anticipation, their crystalline form shifting through shades of excited blue. "The concept is unprecedented," Aurora's translated voice chimed through the chamber. "Your ships have always been tools. Ours are extensions of ourselves. This will be something entirely new." Miguel stepped into the integration chamber, his specialized flight suit lined with crystalline sensors. "Just remember, if this works, we're not just changing how we fight. We're changing how species can work together." The chamber activated, and Miguel's vital signs appeared on Emily's monitors. More interesting were the patterns appearing in Aurora's crystalline surface, a perfect mirror of Miguel's neural patterns, translated into Xylaxian color speech. "Neural synchronization at 30%, Emily reported, watching the numbers climb. 40, 50, holding steady at 65%. That's well above our target threshold." The prototype ship, dubbed Harmony, began to respond. Its crystalline additions pulsed in rhythm with both Miguel's thoughts and Aurora's color patterns. The vessel was becoming more than a ship. It was transforming into a living bridge between two species' ways of experiencing space. Across the station, similar transformations were taking place. Earth vessels were being upgraded with Xylaxian crystalline technology, while Xylaxian ships were being reinforced with human engineering principles. Each hybrid craft represented countless hours of collaboration, trial, and error. In the station's tactical center, Admiral Chen reviewed the simulation results with growing satisfaction. The hybrid ships were performing beyond expectations, combining human tactical flexibility with Xylaxian sensory capabilities in ways the cracks could never anticipate. "Show me the Phantom maneuver again," she requested, watching as holographic ships executed the complex dance. The hybrid vessels could now phase-shift their crystalline components, becoming nearly invisible to standard sensors while maintaining full combat capability. It was just one of many innovations born from the partnership. A junior officer rushed into the center, tablet in hand. "Admiral, you need to see this. Long-range scouts have detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of the Proxima system. The cracks are testing our defenses." Chen studied the data, noting the crack ships' predictable attack patterns. They still expected to face the same peaceful Xylaxian vessels they had so easily overwhelmed before. "Let them come," she said quietly. "Every moment they spend probing our defenses is another moment we have to prepare." In the testing chamber, Miguel completed his first full neural interface flight. The Harmony responded to his thoughts with unprecedented precision, its crystalline sections anticipating his intentions almost before he formed them. Aurora's color speech transformed from excited blue to brilliant gold. "The ship, it sings," the Xylaxian engineer explained. "It carries both the precision of human thought and the resonance of our crystal songs. The cracks expect either human ships or Xylaxian vessels. They cannot prepare for what they cannot imagine." Emily's data confirmed what they all felt. The hybrid ships were more than the sum of their parts. Each vessel represented a perfect synthesis of human determination and Xylaxian insight. The ships might have been built for defense, but they represented something far more important: proof that different species could achieve things together that neither could manage alone. As Miguel emerged from the integration chamber, his eyes bright with excitement, Admiral Chen's voice came over the station's communication system. "Attention all personnel. Long-range sensors confirm cracks battle groups entering the outer system. All hybrid ship crews to their stations. This is not a drill." The time for testing was over. Now, humanity would show the galaxy why you don't threaten those under their protection, and why unity is the greatest strength of all. The Proxima system's outer reaches gleamed with the obsidian shapes of Crack's warships, their formations arranged in rigid geometric patterns that reflected their unwavering belief in overwhelming force. 30 capital ships, each bristling with weapon arrays, moved with mechanical precision toward their target. Aboard the flagship Harmony, Captain Miguel Santos felt the ship's crystalline neural interface come alive around him. Aurora's presence merged with the ship's systems, their combined consciousness expanding to encompass the vessel's every function. Through their shared connection, Miguel could sense the positions of every ship in their defense fleet with unprecedented clarity. Crack's battle group maintaining course, Lieutenant Sarah Wong reported from her tactical station. They're launching fighter screens in standard attack formation. No deviation from known patterns. Admiral Chen's voice came through the command channel from her position at Europa Command. All ships, execute Operation Aurora's Light. Harmony Fleet, you have tactical command. Miguel closed his eyes, letting the neural interface deepen. Around him, 15 hybrid vessels moved in perfect synchronization, their crystalline sections pulsing with coordinated patterns of light and energy. To the Crack sensors, they must have looked like wounded Xylaxian research vessels, easy prey for their advancing forces. The Crack's commander's transmission crackled through space. Primitive defenders, your resistance is futile. Surrender your crystalline allies, and we may permit your species to survive as our subjects. Miguel felt Aurora's amusement ripple through the neural link. The Xylaxian's response was not in words but in light, a cascade of colors that disrupted the Crack's targeting systems while simultaneously transmitting tactical data to the hybrid fleet. Now, Miguel commanded, and the trap was sprung. The hybrid ships executed a maneuver that would have been impossible for either human or Xylaxian vessels alone. Their crystalline sections phase-shifted in perfectly timed sequences, bending both light and space around them. The Crack's formation, designed to counter conventional attacks, suddenly found itself firing at afterimages, while the real ships seemed to dance between their shots. Third Battle Group, execute Firefly Protocol, Miguel ordered. 5 ships broke formation, their crystalline hulls fragmenting into clouds of glittering shards. Each fragment contained a tiny portion of Xylaxian consciousness, guided by human tactical expertise. They swarmed through the Crack's fighter screen, disrupting shields and communication systems with precise bursts of focused energy. The Crack's response was predictable. Their capital ships turned their main weapons arrays toward the perceived threat, leaving themselves exposed to the real attack vector. Miguel felt Aurora's satisfaction as their carefully laid trap closed. All ships, execute Sunburst Maneuver, he commanded. The remaining hybrid vessels emerged from their stealth positions, their crystalline sections reconfiguring into attack formation. The sight must have been breathtaking to the Cracks. Ships that moved like living creatures, their human-engineered weapons perfectly synchronized with Xylaxian energy manipulation. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Human tactical innovations merged with Xylaxian artistic precision, creating warfare that was as beautiful as it was effective. Ships moved in patterns that seemed to defy physics, each maneuver flowing into the next like a choreographed dance. Through the neural interface, Miguel felt the moment the Crack's commander realized their mistake. Their rigid formations began to break apart, their supposedly superior numbers becoming a liability as they struggled to adapt to an entirely new form of combat. Target their command and control systems only, Miguel ordered, remembering the human principle of measured response. Let's show them the difference between dominance and mastery. A hybrid fleet moved as one, their attacks precise and devastating without being lethal. Within 20 minutes, the mighty Crack's battle group was reduced to floating hulks, their weapons and engines disabled, their crews alive but thoroughly defeated. As the final Crack ship went dark, Aurora's voice resonated through the neural interface. Your species fights like you create, with passion, precision, and purpose. The Cracks sought to prove their superiority. Instead, they have witnessed the birth of something greater than they could imagine. Miguel looked out at the starfield, now clear of enemy ships. "This was just the beginning," he said quietly. "They'll adapt and return with new tactics. Let them come." Aurora responded, the ship's crystalline sections pulsing with determined light. "We will show them that true strength lies not in domination, but in the art of working together." The holographic war room aboard Europa Station displayed a vast map of known space, with clusters of light representing the ongoing battles across 12 star systems. Admiral Chen studied the patterns of engagement, noting how each confrontation differed from the last. The cracks were learning, adapting their tactics, but so were the human Xylaxian forces. The Centauri defense was particularly impressive, Dr. Emily Watson noted, manipulating the display to show footage from the recent battle. A squadron of hybrid ships executed a complex maneuver that seemed to split reality itself, using crystalline technology to bend space in ways that the original designers of both species would have thought impossible. "They're calling it the prismatic divide," Emily continued. "The Xylaxians figured out how to use their crystalline structures to create microfolds in space. When combined with human intuitive combat tactics, it gives us an advantage they can't counter." Chen finished, watching as the hybrid ships emerged from seemingly impossible angles to outflank the Crack's forces. "But we can't use the same trick twice. They're studying every engagement." A communication request chimed, and Aurora's crystalline form materialized in the holographic display. "Admiral, our deep space sensors have detected unusual movements in the Crack supply lines. They appear to be gathering resources for something significant." Chen nodded, unsurprised. The Cracks had lost their first major battles, but they controlled an empire spanning hundreds of systems. They wouldn't accept defeat easily. "Captain Santos, what's your assessment?" she asked, turning to Miguel, who stood quietly in the corner. After the success of the Harmony's neural interface system, he had been promoted to tactical advisor for the entire fleet. "They're preparing for a massive push," he replied, stepping forward to manipulate the holographic display. "But more interesting is what they're not doing. Look at these systems here." He highlighted a cluster of stars. Minimal defenses, valuable resources, yet they're pulling ships out instead of reinforcing them. Emily's eyes widened as she studied the data. Those systems all have something in common. They're home to species that the Cracks previously subjugated. Why would they leave them vulnerable? Because they're afraid. Aurora's colors shifted to a thoughtful blue. "Not of our weapons, but of our example. Every battle we win shows their subject species that cooperation is stronger than domination." The station's alert system interrupted their discussion. A Xylaxian research vessel had emerged from quantum space carrying representatives from 3 previously unknown species. They requested immediate audience with the Human Xylaxian Alliance. The meeting that followed would change the course of the war. The new arrivals, the spherical quantum minds of Vega, the ethereal star dancers of Antares, and the crystalline silicon hybrid beings called the Syntheri, had all been watching the conflict with intense interest. "Your alliance proves what many of us have long suspected," the vegan representative's translated thoughts echoed through the chamber. "The Crack's method of advancement through conquest is fundamentally flawed. We offer our own unique capabilities to your cause." Over the next several hours, the combined scientific knowledge of 5 species flowed freely. The vegans offered their mastery of quantum mathematics, the star dancers their understanding of solar dynamics, and the Syntheri their expertise in combining organic and inorganic technologies. As Admiral Chen watched the exchange of ideas, she realized that humanity's role had evolved. They weren't just protecting the Xylaxians anymore. They were helping to forge a new kind of interstellar community, one built on mutual respect and shared innovation rather than force and fear. "The Cracks believe they're gathering forces for a decisive battle," she announced to the assembled representatives. "Let them come. Every species brings unique strengths to this alliance. Together, we'll show them that the future belongs to those who know how to cooperate, not those who only know how to conquer. In the days that followed, hybrid ships began incorporating technologies and insights from all 5 species. The cracks had thought they were facing a simple military alliance. Instead, they had catalyzed the birth of something unprecedented, a true union of civilizations, with humanity's protective instincts and adaptability at its heart. The Sol system sparkled with artificial constellations, thousands of crystalline platforms orbiting in precise formations, each one combining technologies from all 5 allied species. Earth's orbital defense network had evolved into something unprecedented, a living shield that seemed to breathe with the combined consciousness of its creators. Aboard the enhanced flagship Harmony, Captain Miguel Santos felt the presence of not just Aurora, but representatives from each allied species connected through the expanded neural interface. The vegan quantum mathematician's multidimensional calculations merged seamlessly with the Star Dancer's solar wind predictions, while the Synthery's hybrid logic matrices helped process the overwhelming flow of information. Crack's battle fleet detected emerging from quantum space. Lieutenant Wong announced, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. 700 capital ships, over 2,000 support vessels. They've committed their entire Imperial fleet. Admiral Chen's hologram materialized on the bridge, her expression determined. All defense grid stations, initiate protocol prismatic shield. Harmony fleet, prepare to execute Operation Daybreak. The Crack's fleet emerged like a storm of obsidian shards, their ships arranged in a massive spear formation designed to pierce straight through traditional defenses. Their new flagship, nearly twice the size of their previous vessels, led the charge. They expect us to repeat our previous tactics, Miguel observed, feeling Aurora's agreement ripple through the neural link. They've modified their ships to counter everything we've shown them so far. Then let's show them something new, Chen replied. Execute primary defense pattern. The orbital platforms came alive, their crystalline structures resonating in harmony. Quantum calculations from the vegan matrices predicted the Crack's trajectory paths with perfect precision. Solar wind manipulated by Star Dancer technology created corridors of altered space. Synthery conversion fields stood ready to redirect enemy energy weapons. The Crack's commander's transmission boomed across all frequencies. Your clever tricks end today. Surrender Earth, and your species may yet survive as a protectorate of the Imperium. Miguel felt Aurora's amusement through their link. They still think this is about winning or losing, the Zalaxian observed. They don't understand that we've already changed the rules of the game. The Crack's fleet opened fire, their combined weapons forming a lance of energy that would have vaporized a conventional planetary defense system. Instead, the blast met the crystalline defense grid, but rather than attempting to block the massive attack, the grid transformed it. Quantum matrices calculated precise refraction angles. Crystalline structures channeled the energy through predefined paths. Star Dancer solar manipulators added their own power to the mix. The result was spectacular. The Crack's own energy blast split into thousands of smaller beams, each one precisely targeted to disable rather than destroy their ship's primary systems. Now, Harmony Fleet, Chen commanded. Show them what true cooperation looks like. The hybrid fleet moved as one, their formations flowing like liquid light through space. Each ship's movements enhanced the others, creating patterns that seemed to defy physics itself. The Crack's fleet's rigid formations simply couldn't adapt fast enough to counter attacks coming from what appeared to be every dimension at once. Miguel felt the rising surge of collective consciousness through the neural interface as all 5 species worked in perfect synchronization. This wasn't just combat. It was a demonstration of what diverse civilizations could achieve together. The Crack's flagship attempted to rally its forces, but its commanders were fighting with an outdated paradigm. They saw space as a battlefield to be conquered. The Alliance saw it as a canvas where art, science, and strategy could merge into something entirely new. Within 2 hours, the mighty Crack's fleet hung motionless in space, their ships disabled but largely intact. Not a single crew member had been lost, a fact that would prove crucial in the days to come. The final transmission from the Crack's flagship was not a surrender, but something far more significant, a question. What are you? Admiral Chen's response was simple. We are the future, and if you're willing to learn, we're ready to share it. In that moment, as the disabled Crack ships floated against the backdrop of Earth's crystalline defense grid, the galaxy witnessed the truth. True power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to transform enemies into allies. 1 year after the Battle of Seoul, the newly constructed Harmony Station orbited Earth like a crystalline flower in bloom. Its spiral arms combined architectural styles from all 6 allied species, creating a structure that served as both a diplomatic hub and a living symbol of interstellar cooperation. Dr. Emily Watson stood in the station's grand observation dome, watching a group of young Crack scientists working alongside their former enemies. The once rigid warriors had discovered a new path, their natural discipline now turned toward understanding rather than conquest. Their adaptation has been remarkable, Aurora commented, their crystalline form shifting through shades of pleased blue-green. Who would have thought they would have such an aptitude for crystalline engineering once they stopped trying to steal it? Emily smiled, remembering the tense negotiations that followed the battle. The Crack's leadership, faced with irrefutable proof that cooperation yielded better results than conquest, had made the unprecedented decision to transform their empire into a member state of the new Stellar Cooperation Initiative. Admiral Chen, they're ready for you in the ceremony hall, a young lieutenant announced, approaching with Captain Santos at her side. Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's representative to the Stellar Council, nodded. Today marked the inauguration of the Interstellar Academy, a project she had championed from its conception. The ceremony would welcome the first class of students from 20 different species, including several that had once been bitter enemies. The ceremony hall itself showcased what could be achieved through cooperation. Quantum matrices provided by the vegans created stable microgravity zones. Star Dancer solar arrays powered environmental systems that accommodated all known forms of life. Synthery technology seamlessly integrated organic and mechanical components, while Xylaxian crystals transformed the entire space into one massive communication network. Distinguished representatives of the stellar community, Chen began her address, her voice carrying to all attendees regardless of their physical form. 1 year ago, we faced a moment of crisis that could have ended in devastation. Instead, it became a catalyst for unprecedented change. The assembled beings, some humanoid, some crystalline, some existing as pure energy, listened intently as she continued. The Cracks sought to prove that strength comes from dominance. Instead, they helped us demonstrate that true power lies in our ability to work together, to combine our unique perspectives and abilities in ways that benefit all. Miguel Santos, sitting with his partner Aurora in the front row, felt the familiar warmth of their neural link. Their connection, once revolutionary, had become a model for a new form of diplomacy, where species could literally see through each other's eyes. Today, we open the doors of the first truly interstellar academy, Chen announced. Here, the warriors of the Cracks will learn alongside Xylaxian artists. Human engineers will study with vegan quantum physicists. Star Dancer solar mystics will share their wisdom with synthery logic experts, each bringing their own strengths, each learning from the others. The ceremony concluded with a display that would have been impossible just a year before. The combined knowledge and artistic expression of 6 species transformed the hall into a living symphony of light, energy, and emotion. It was both a celebration and a promise, a glimpse of what the future could hold when diverse civilizations chose to create together rather than compete. Later, as the celebration continued, Emily found herself back in the observation dome, watching Earth rotate below. A young Crack's apprentice approached her, their once rigid posture now relaxed and curious. "Teacher," they asked, using the human term with obvious respect, "is it true that your species was prepared to fight our entire empire to protect the Xylaxians, even when you barely knew them?" Emily considered the question carefully. We fought to protect them, yes, she replied. But more importantly, we fought to protect an idea, that the galaxy is big enough for all of us to thrive together. Sometimes the strongest weapons are not the ones that destroy, but the ones that transform. The apprentice nodded thoughtfully, their eyes turning to the stars. My people spoke of conquest for generations, they said quietly. But I think perhaps we were conquering ourselves, limiting ourselves to a single way of thinking. You showed us a better path. As if in response to these words, the crystalline structures of Harmony Station pulsed with warm light, their patterns reflecting the combined achievements of 6 civilizations that had learned to reach for the stars together. It was more than just peace. It was a new way of existence, where strength came not from standing alone, but from joining hands across the cosmic divide.